Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Towel Boy, where we try to give you the cleanest takes in sports. Today, we are breaking down our initial thoughts of the college football playoff rankings, right? The 12-team final bracket came out about 30 minutes ago at the time I'm recording this. So I'm just going to give you guys my quick initial thoughts of the process, my thoughts of the seeding, what teams should be in, should be out. Um, Yeah, so like I said, Brad came out about 30 minutes ago at the time I'm recording this. So I don't have I haven't sat with it for a bunch of time to have tons and tons of research. So this is more going off of what I thought going into today, what the committee would do, my thoughts on what should have been done, and just a little bit of that gut reaction, gut feeling. Uh, Overall, I think the committee did a terrible job this year. Uh, Not necessarily with all of the seating, like the final bracket, I think is for the most part okay. There's some things I definitely disagree with, but their process all season has been inconsistent and just inconsistent with last year and years before, and also just week by week inconsistent. We'll get there later, but obviously, like the Miami Notre Dame thing is a huge example, right? Alabama, BYU, like why does one team get punished for getting blown out at their championship, one team doesn't, right? So things like that we'll talk about, break down a little bit. Um, yeah, I guess we'll just get right to it. Going from the top to the bottom. Uh, Number one overall seed, Indiana. They proved it last night against Ohio State in a really good conference championship game for the Big Ten. Like that game felt like a national championship type game where two of the best or the two best teams playing each other. Very close game, came down at last second. Low scoring, but didn't feel boring to me. You know, one of those games where it just felt like the two best teams. Indiana came out on top. They proved they're the best team in the country and they should be the number one seed. So no problem with that at all. And then that moves on. I have no problem with Ohio State being number two. That, like I said, that was the type of game where you don't really punish the loser of that conference championship. Close game. Ohio State really could have won it, right? Turnover and downs inside the 10, missed field goal from like 30 yards away, lost by three. So Ohio State is the number two team in the country to me. So I think them being number two is perfectly fine. Number three, Georgia, SEC champion. No problem with that either, right? The first four are pretty easy. Texas Tech, number four, they're the fourth best team. You could have made a case for them over Georgia, I think, but that's really nitpicky. I don't think the committee would have flip flopped those two just off of the conference championships. I do think Texas Tech is a sneaky team. Um, I mean, saying number four team is a sneaky team, it's kind of funny, but I feel like when people are talking about true contenders, true championship teams, it's Georgia, it's Ohio State, it's Indiana. Um, it's not Texas Tech. You don't hear a whole lot about, right? I feel like I hear more about Oregon than I do Texas Tech, and I think Texas Tech, um, really, really is a good team. And I think they're here to stay. I think Joey McGuire is a good coach. They have got the money to put into their resources to get the players that they need to consistently compete. So I think Tech at four will be interesting. I'm excited to see probably playing number five, Oregon. This is the next team. If Oregon wins their first round matchup, um, Oregon being number five, I do think they're one of the best teams in the country still. Number five makes perfect sense. They're going to be matched up against James Madison, number 12, one of the group of five highest ranked conference champions. Good for the Dukes. James Madison getting in there. I don't expect that to be a very competitive game, but of course you're going to cheer for the chaos, cheer for the underdog a little bit. But Oregon number five, perfect sense to me. Number six, Ole Miss. Uh, you know, you've seen the committee punish teams for not having a coach, not having a quarterback, whatever. Uh, they didn't do that this year with Ole Miss. Ole Miss number six. It'll be interesting to see how they play without Lane Kiffin, but no problem with them being number six. Texas A&M number seven. No problem with A&M being seven. Uh, Beginning of the year, I thought, dang, Marcel Reed should be Heisman. A&M really should be a true contender. The last couple of weeks have not been very consistent, not have looked as good as the start of the season. With their whole body of work, they're a very good team. Number seven makes a lot of sense. Their matchup against Miami should be fun. But I'm excited to see A&M in the playoffs, see if they can get back to being that true elite team that I thought they might have been around September, early October. Eight seed Oklahoma, their defense is spectacular. another SEC team, right? Getting in here, 8 seed Oklahoma. Have not had a lot to talk about so far. The first 8 seeds, pretty much what was expected, right? Now, starting the last couple of seeds is where I have a problem, and a lot of people have a problem. Alabama at 9 really, really pisses me off. I'm sick and tired of the SEC Big Ten bias just in general. It's annoying. Uh, ESPN and Disney own the rights to SEC. We all know how there is a bias, right? And it's just true. Maybe the SEC is the best conference. That probably is true. But each week, every SEC team, especially like Texas fans, oh, we're playing. Shut up. Like, whatever, right? Alabama should not be 9. I don't think they should be in the playoffs. But the fact that are, they didn't move down at all. They got blown out in their conference championship. Georgia made them like the score should have been even larger. Like that's how the game felt. Georgia dominated them from start to finish. Alabama put up no fight. Alabama should have at least been punished, gotten moved down, in my opinion. So this is where the first inconsistency, right? BYU, the second team left out of the bracket, they got punished for getting blown out in their conference championship game, right? So why is there inconsistency with Alabama? If BYU is maybe in, I know, if it's a close game, right? Is BYU in? We'll never know. I think they should. I think they still should be in. I'll explain that in a little bit. But why is there the inconsistency? And I think the SEC bias, right? First three lost team with Alabama getting into the playoff. I don't think they should be in. I don't think that Alabama should be in. I think BYU, I think Notre Dame should both be in over Alabama. I don't think that like we talk about conference championships, how there shouldn't be a huge punishment, right? If you lose it, but if you get blown out and there's teams with similar resumes, um, if you can get rewarded for your conference championship, winning that, or making another case like, hey, look, we played good with Georgia, you should also be punished. And I don't think it makes any sense for Alabama to not get punished for looking terrible yesterday. So Alabama at 9, I disagree with completely. Um, they're going to play against Oklahoma, SEC matchup there, but Alabama at 9, I disagree with. Okay, the 10 seed Miami, but this is the most controversial part. The Miami Notre Dame flip flopping. I 1000% agree Miami should be in. Head to head, Miami beat Notre Dame. They've played many similar teams. Miami beat the same teams by the same or more points than Notre Dame. Yes, eye test might tell you Notre Dame right now is a better team right now, but you have to go off a body of work. Why would we punish Miami beat Notre Dame? Like that's the end of the argument, pretty much for me. Miami beat Notre Dame early in the season. But why was Notre Dame ahead of Miami on Tuesday, but now Miami's ahead of Notre Dame? Makes absolutely no sense. And that's why the committee, they're trying to make this money marketing thing of having selection shows every Tuesday. They should just have one final bracket after all the championships. Just release it so you won't have this controversy. That's where I don't think Notre Dame should be in. I'm going to say that right now. I don't think Notre Dame should be in. It should have been Miami, no matter what seeding. Like if you're looking at those two, right? That's been the talk of the town like the last week or so. But you got to feel for Notre Dame and the fact that there's okay. So yes, on Tuesday, looking at our records, our head to head, whatever the whole season, the committee thought we were better than Miami. Now we both didn't play over the weekend, and now Miami jumps us, and they're in the playoffs. I would be pissed about Notre Dame fan about the process. I disagree with the committee's process. I think their selection and their choice, I actually agree with the choice. The process is horrendous, and we should get rid of the weekly college football rankings. The football committee, playoff committee, should only release one final ranking because the process, especially between Notre Dame and Miami, made absolutely no sense. Why does it change when we both sat idly by in conference championship weekend? I agree with the committee kind of punishing Notre Dame for not being in the conference. That's one thing. I agree that the head to head should matter when pretty much their resumes are the exact same. Like I said, Miami should be in over Notre Dame in my opinion. If I was making my bracket, the seeding might be different, but Miami would be in over Notre Dame. But Notre Dame should feel pissed off and bummed out, and fans, I do feel bad about the process. The fact that okay, nothing's changed from Tuesday, but now we're out. That sucks. And then 11 is Tulane, 12 James Madison. Some people, I'm sick of Nick Saban talking about, oh, the best teams aren't in because we're rewarding the group of five, which frankly, on the show today, he said, not verbatim, but all said, like, frankly, that these two teams aren't up to par with blah, 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 blah. While that might be true, they won their championship. They did the rules. And it would be dumb to have the group of five or whatever non-power conferences play football for no reason, right? If you're playing the whole season with no chance of getting into the playoffs, why are you playing? You have to reward the group of five. Many years we see now with the transfer portal, some of the best new coaches, best new players come from the group of five level and then ball out at the power five level. There's good players, there's good teams, good coaches at that level. So let's reward them, make it more fun. Have that underdog story, right? A couple years ago, Tulane destroyed USC and Caleb Williams in the their bowl game. Not the playoffs, but still same idea, right? Yes, I don't think Tulane and James Madison are better than Notre Dame. I don't think they're better than Texas or Vanderbilt or BYU. But that doesn't matter. That's not how the committee. That's not how the rankings work. And I'm gonna. It's gonna be stupid. People are gonna complain. Mostly the SEC. They're gonna complain that they got screwed and that blah, all that crap. I don't care, right? The first round, we saw it last year. Some of the powerhouses got destroyed by other Power Five teams, right? So if there's a blowout or two, that's going to happen no matter what. You have to reward the group of five. And I know this year, like the rules, they changed it. It's not necessarily there's a group of five, it's the top conference champions. Okay, right? So win your conference, right? The ACC had a terrible conference. It's their conference champion isn't in the playoffs, right? Things like that. So, like, I don't know. The argument for the no group of five, I think is dumb. I like the group of five. I don't care if there's blowouts. Like, if you told me right now that Oklahoma would blow out Alabama, like, I'd be like, okay, I guess that probably could happen. Say A&M destroys Miami, like, okay, that could happen, right? So say Oregon's going to destroy James Madison, okay, probably. So what, right? They earned the right to be here. So that's the first 12. Later on, I'll post a video going over my predictions for the college football playoffs. But today's more just talking about the rankings. Now I want to talk about the few teams that got left out, right? Vanderbilt and Texas were on the outside looking in the whole time. Texas was being super, super annoying, like they always are. We should be in. Why would we play these non-conference? Don't lose your games. Basically, is what it is. Don't lose, you'll be in. Um, that's all I'm going to say. Texas and Vanderbilt didn't really have a chance. Don't lose your games. We only lost to Ohio State. You lost to Florida. I don't care. Whatever. Um, Notre Dame was the first team left out. Again, I do not think Notre Dame should be in the playoff. I do not think they had a good enough resume to get into the playoff. Their best win was against an okay USC team. They lost the other two big games against A&M and Miami, right? Then that comes in the point of being punished this weekend for no reason. Okay, Miami is better than them because they beat them. Like I would put Miami above Notre Dame, but I would be pissed if I was Notre Dame about the flip flop. I think it matters. I think it's cool. Like I'm gonna go on a separate tangent rant, kind of, but I hate the realignment of the conferences. We need to go back to geographical conferences. There's too many teams in conferences. It makes it more confusing. 12 teams per conference, whatever. That would make it easier. And I think the committee showed that hey, playing in a conference does matter. Uh, Notre Dame. I know Miami wasn't in a conference championship, so that for this argument, but like Notre Dame probably would have been in a conference championship if they were in the ACC, for example, right? Now, we talk a lot about like the eye test and the resume. Eye test, I do agree. Notre Dame probably is one of the 12 best teams. That's true. But they lost the games on the field. The hypothetical arguments, like right now, if they played, they would beat Miami. Maybe they would. I'm not going to argue with that. But the fact of the matter is, they played and they lost. So Notre Dame should be pissed that they got jumped because it's inconsistent with the committee, but they didn't do enough, in my opinion, to make it into the playoffs. Now, I think that Notre Dame and the next team, who I'll talk about, BYU was the next team left out. I think personally, I think BYU should be in the this bracket that the committee released. Um, I think I agree that it should matter that if you get blown out in your conference championship, especially since they were on the bubble, whatever. I don't think they should have been on the bubble. They had more, they had a better strength of record, strength of schedule than the other teams on the bubble. They had more top 25 wins, right? Their only losses was to Texas Tech, both blowouts, yes, but to a number four team, right? I think BYU had a better overall resume than the Texases, the Notre Dames, the Miamis. Those were the kind of people on the bubble, right? So I'm not mad that BYU gets punished for losing to Texas Tech in the fashion that they did. Where I do get upset and mad, Alabama did the same thing. And I talked about this earlier, so I won't go too much. Alabama got destroyed in their conference championship, and they stayed at 9. Explain that to me. You can't. It makes no sense. Why is BYU now out of the playoffs, and Alabama is like, we're fine. We're good. Doesn't matter that we looked horrible against Georgia. Okay, that's my thing. I would have BYU over Miami. I would have BYU over Alabama, over Notre Dame, of course, right? But here we are. This is a decision that the committee made. It doesn't make sense to me. BYU, I think BYU should be in. Now, if the committee had gone Miami 9, Notre Dame 10, I would be less mad about it because they're showing that conference championships, losing it does matter. So if Alabama and BYU both got punished and were both out, that would make more sense to me, and I could rationalize that a little bit more. I would be less upset with that. But just the inconsistency there, that really, really irks me. Okay, that's where I stand. Right, I think BYU should be in over those other bubble teams. I think Notre Dame should be pissed about how it happened, but I don't think they should be in. I don't think Alabama should be in. Um, if I was making my personal bracket, and you can probably argue, comment your thoughts, what you believe, right? Comment who you would have put in your final bracket. I think I would have gone BYU at 9, Miami at 10. That's probably what I would have done. You could have the argument about the Alabama maybe at 10. That would make some sense to me too. But like that's where I would stand. That's also because I was higher on BYU's resume before the conference championship as well. Okay. So overall, I don't think the bracket is horrible, right? There's some things I would change, but every year you're going to have things you would change. You're not going to agree with the committee. I think the whole year that the committee, all year, sorry, the committee was inconsistent and just didn't make a whole lot of sense and contradicted themselves a lot. So the process of the committee, really, really bad. That being said, every year you're going to have fan bases and teams that are pissed off. You're going to have neutrals upset. At the end of the day, my team is not in the playoffs. So at the end of the day, I'm going to rant to you guys, right? About talk about what I think I would have done. But now I'm just going to hope for some good football. I hope on starting December 19th when the playoffs happen, we're going to have a lot of fun games. And I hope that we're going to have a month of really fun playoffs. Now that's all I can do. All I can do is hope and pray that we have awesome games, super fun moments that we can watch. And these are great things. And hoping, what if the committee is right and their game is awesome, right? That's the ideal scenario. I think we're going to see a lot of changes this year because people are going to complain. Committee was inconsistent, all of that stuff. I hope it. I don't like the direction that college sports in general, college football is going. Um, but right now, what can I do? I'm just a fan, and I'm talking to like 50 viewers on YouTube about what I think would do. Right, like so. Now I'm gonna hope sit back after ranting about my thoughts, giving my thoughts. That's what I would do, right? I think the top 7, top 8 teams that are good, right? I think the group of 5 should have those teams in there because they won their championships, right? They did what the committee told them they wanted to do, right? People complained last year it shouldn't be automatic bye, it should be blah blah blah. They changed it to tweak it, and this is what happened. I think Notre Dame should be punished for their schedule not being in a conference, but they should be pissed about the process of getting jumped by Miami. I think Alabama should have been punished for getting blown out, just like BYU. That's where I stand. Okay. I would love to know your guys' thoughts. What did the committee get right? What did the committee get wrong? What would you have done if you were in the committee? Where would you have placed teams? What changes or tweaks would you like to see next year for the 12-team playoff? Later on in the week, I'm going to give my predictions for each game, my bracket, who I'm going to see as the eventual national champion. That's all I got. That's my rant about um, the recently posted college football playoff bracket, what I thought about the seedings, what the committee did. And I would love to hear from you guys. So please comment your thoughts, your opinions, and until next time, have a great one. Adios.